What's up, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, and the overall markets. I'll talk about some very key supports and resistance levels, what you should be watching for as we're about to see a big test very soon. But just note that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Webull link. If you deposit any amount of money, you're guaranteed 12 free stocks. If you deposit $500, you're guaranteed 20 in total. Deposit $25,000 or more, and you're guaranteed 75. The offer ends very soon in just 10 days. Anyways, now let's talk about what's happening with the market. So one thing worth mentioning about how the market's moving is we saw a bit of a dip so far during this pre-market session, but we're watching this 20 EMA as our key support. That's going to be around this 582 area for SPY. So if we end up losing this support at the 20 EMA, this could turn back down. But if we hold this could attempt to rebound. And I'll talk about how I think this may end up developing in just a few minutes. Just know that for today, it's Monday, October 21st, 2024. We had a Logan from the Fed starting their speech, and then besides that, at 11:30 a.m., we have the 3 and 6 month bill auctions coming out, and then we have Kashkari giving a speech at 1 p.m. Once again, it's Eastern Standard Time, the time they use in New York. So Kashkari's speech is going to be one of the biggest factors, at least affecting the market later on during the day. Besides that, there's not really a whole lot else that's coming out. Now for earnings, everything's been quite minor so far. Just a few small banks, and we have SAP later on. For Tuesday, we have Verizon, GM, and 3M. And then for Wednesday, we have Boeing, AT&T, not to mention Coca-Cola. And then after the market closes, we have Tesla and IBM. But Tesla's going to be a big one, at least during that period. So get ready for those earnings that are coming up. Now, as far as the market goes, we've been pushing quite a bit. I think we're on the sixth straight positive week for the broader markets, which is pretty insane. So we'll see how well the market does today. I also want to mention that we're waiting for these big earnings. And there's been a lot of talk about the elections. That's going to be pretty huge. It's about 2 weeks away. So, like I said in my previous video, it's one of the creepiest times of the year. Not Halloween, but the election. So can't wait for that. That's why the market's been very, uh, resilient amidst all these things that tend to happen. There was some negative news about Tesla. That's why it's underperforming compared to the broader markets. Ford is basically telling some EV customers to stop using their supercharger adapter, and they're going to be sending some free chargers instead. So it's very important. So now let's talk about how this is likely going to be going on, at least for the markets as well. So as far as the market goes, I just want to say that we've been looking at some interesting volatility with all these developments, and the market is starting off on a weaker end just for now. I do think that this could shift later on as time goes on, but it depends on the big test that we're about to see. So starting off with SPY, I just want to say that SPY right now has its support at the 20 EMA. That's at 582.28. Now we're attempting to rebound a bit. So when we open, I do think this might rebound a little bit, but later on during the day, just know this: we even if we do, excuse me, even if we do rebound a little bit and start dipping lower, watch 582.28 as our main support. If that fails us, there's a risk of us coming back down to 580 to then 578. If this holds, we could once again continue to try to push up to this imbalance at 584. My prediction is we might actually push a little bit upon open, but there is a risk of us falling again later on during the day. And we will see if 582 holds or not. If it does not hold, there's that risk of us dipping lower. But so far, we're holding support, so it's doing a good job. Look for a little bit of a push upon open, and we'll see if we end up dipping later on during the day. And we'll see if 582 breaks or not. So that's going to be a very critical support, at least for the time being. Yes, it's showing a little bit of weakness during the pre-market, but make sure you watch 58.92. If we hold this could attempt to rebound for the 59.10 area. And if we lose this, there's a risk of stepping all the way down towards the 58.80 area. So in my opinion, we could attempt to rebound a bit, but then there's a risk of us kind of dipping lower below our 20 EMA later on. And that could lead to even more downside as time goes on. For Nvidia is kind of flat right now. I just want to call out 136.43. If we lose that, Nvidia is at risk of coming back down to about 133. If we hold this, we're looking for basically this 138 areas or resistance, not to mention 140. Might be a little bit of a push upon open, but then we'll see if we get a rejection near 138 to start dipping down to 136. So be careful with Nvidia. I say this because the last time we hit 140, 137 to 140, we did get a rejection. This happened multiple times. That suggests that Nvidia has some tough resistance up here. So just be a little bit more careful with it. If we lose 136, we will turn a little bit more bearish. Otherwise, it might try to rebound a bit. But then later on during the day, if we do get that dip, just be very careful. For Bitcoin, We pumped only to dip a little bit lower, so we need to hold above 68,192. If it fails to do so, this imbalance will take us down towards 67,668. So I see a risk of that potentially being tested. As far as Tesla goes, we had some negative news involving Ford. We will see if 217 holds this or not. If we hold 217, we could attempt to rebound to 220. Hold above 220, I do think that Tesla could try to rebound. If we don't hold above 220, if it struggles to do that, we just remain at these lower levels, there is a risk of us getting close to 215 again. So can we get back above 220 to turn back up? Or do we end up losing the 217 support to start dipping back down towards about that 215 area? I'll be watching that very, very carefully. For NQ, now there's one concern for me. We had this high up here on NQ. We came down, made a lower high, came down, made a lower high, came down. So we're going to be looking at our resistance at 20,400 and support at 20,388. If this fails us and we're continuing to make lower highs, there is a risk of us dipping lower all the way down to 20,200. We'll see if we hold this or not, but just be very conscious of that. The QQQ is also at risk. It could attempt to push a little higher upon open, but know this. We had a high here. We came down, made a lower high, came down, made a lower high again, and came down. So will we make a lower high? We need to reclaim 496 to turn back up. First off, watch 492.87 as support, followed by 490. Then we have 494 as our resistance, not to mention 496. So we're going to likely push upon open, but then we'll see if we make a lower high. If it makes a lower high here, there is a risk of it dipping back down to 490. And then if we break the high, if we manage to get back above this imbalance at 494, we could be trying to push higher. So when we open, look for a push up, and then we'll see if we get a rejection as time goes on. For Aapl, we're kind of dipping a bit. Look at this resistance around this 235 area. And if we come short and don't break that, we're at risk of coming back down to 232.9. And eventually the 231s could be coming for a little bit of a dip. So it might rebound upon open, but then later on during the day, we might come down to fill that gap, which could slow the market down to some extent. So be very conscious of that. For the IWM, we're looking at support at 224.64. We'll see if this rebounds a bit before it continues to dip. And we have this imbalance down here, which should take us down to about 223. So watch 224.67 as our support. We could pop a bit and start dipping a little bit lower, but then watch and see if that holds. If we lose 224.6, we turn more bearish on the IWM. Amazon could push up for 189. If it rejects there, we're looking for a move back down to 187. For Meta's on a bit of a downtrend right now. I do see risk of getting very close to the 570 area. For Microsoft, we have resistance at 418. If it rejects there, it could be dipping back down to like 415. So be careful with that. It's just kind of consolidating right now. And Google's making lower highs. I think it could try to attempt for 165, but then if it rejects, there's a risk of it dipping all the way down towards like 163. So my view has remained basically the same. So with that being said, guys, the market may attempt to rebound upon open, but then watch and see if we get a rejection if we start dipping. And then if we do dip, make sure you watch the critical supports I called out. We need to hold them to remain bullish. Otherwise, there's a risk of us dipping lower. All right. So I thank you all so much for listening. Please have a great day. I'll be back in a couple of hours for another update. Until then, thanks again and peace out.